So, one thing you have all have noticed if you're watching this video is that I like to speak in my fursuit. Now that may not be all that crazy of an idea, but not that long ago, speaking in fursuit wasn't the norm. In fact, it was pretty actively discouraged. But times have changed, the fandom has changed, and now things are trending in the opposite direction, where you're more likely to hear a fursuiter talk than not. But even though I do talk, if you've met me personally or have interacted with me in real time and not just through the videos I make, you may have noticed that I don't speak the same way all of the time. And that's very much on purpose. Depending on the context or the situation, I will change how I talk as my persona, and in some cases, not even speak at all. At first, I really didn't think much of it, but as more and more people pointed this out to me, I realized that something as simple as changing the way you speak can add a whole extra layer of intrigue to your character and your persona. And that's what I wanted to go over today. I wanted to formally break down the different voices I tend to use while performing as my persona, and why I do it in the first place, with the hopes of inspiring you to think about changing up how you talk as your character. Because changing the way other people hear your persona through your voice can completely change the way they perceive you, which may be what you want if you're looking for a separation of your real self from your furry self. Let me explain. And let's start with going a little bit more over the why. Specifically, why do I speak in fursuit? Well, there are actually many reasons why I decided to give my persona a voice through my fursuit, and a lot of them are a lot more practical than you might think. The first one should be pretty obvious. The entire original purpose for me getting my fursuit in the first place was to make furry video explainers with it, and I really didn't want to go through the hassle of gesturing with my suit on camera and trying to dub over the voice afterward. So I do it all in one go, and when I make my videos, you're hearing me speak through my fursuit. But that's just for making videos. What about places like cons or fur meets? Silent suiting is still very prevalent, so what made me decide to keep a voice while performing in my fursuit? Well, that question almost implicitly answers itself. When I'm out performing as Finn the Panther, I'm showing off the liveliness and personality that he has as a persona, and part of that persona is his voice. Now, we'll get into the specifics behind the voice itself in a little bit, but I believe that speaking in fursuit is a part of giving an anthropomorphic version of yourself life. It helps you and other people really build up the entire character in their minds as a separate entity. Which is funny, because that same reasoning is commonly used to argue against speaking in fursuit, with the idea that your real human voice is coming out through the anthropomorphic animal suit. That in turn reminds everyone that you're not actually a real anthropomorphic animal and that there's a person under here. And just for me personally, I think more reminders that there are actual humans in these suits are needed nowadays than not. But that's for another video, so be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss that rant. But even putting that aside, it's just very practical to allow yourself to speak in suit. Remember, while I'm in here, all my other senses, the sight, scent, hearing, and touching, those are all compressed in here. So being able to use my voice to interact with those around me who can make up for those lost senses is very helpful. Plus, part of the fun of suiting for me is meeting and interacting with people in suit, and having a voice to do that makes that a whole lot easier. Which actually leads me to the main idea behind this video. I do talk a lot in suit, as you have probably all noticed, but when I'm speaking in suit, do I speak the same way all of the time? Well, the answer is no, and if I did, that's actually where I start to at least kind of understand the argument against using your normal human voice while performing in suit. Doing so may imply that you're just a human being wearing a fancy animal-shaped carpet, whether you like it or not. But that's the thing, you don't have to use your default human voice when performing in your fursuit. In fact, giving your fursuit its own voice or set of voices can really add to the character of the, well, character that you're portraying. Many fursuiters actually pick this up on their own without them realizing it. To get people to hear you in the first place, you have to change your voice to work over it getting muffled in here. So using a different type of voice to do that comes very naturally to a lot of fursuiters. I just happen to be weird and like to be very obvious about the different voices I have while I'm in suit, so let's talk about them while we're here, shall we? Now, of all the voices that you hear out of me through this suit, this one, the one I'm speaking to you with right now, this is the one you'll probably hear the most. This is what I like to call my presenter voice, and it's specifically designed to be heard clearly while I'm talking, specifically heard clearly by microphones. It's actually quite close to my normal personal voice, but still has that classic YouTube/content creator tones when emphasizing things. And that's exactly what it's for, making content that's easy to understand. The theory behind this is I don't want my voice to be too distracting. Sure, I'll add a little flair and personality to it while I talk, but most of that will come through the script writing, leaving the voice to be very consistent, almost boring. And if you watched any of my other content before, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's how I present Finn in most, if not all, of the videos that I made. So yeah, my presenter voice is probably the default voice that I tend to go to since I make a lot of videos. But if that voice is all centered on consistency, my performance voice is not. Now, my performance voice is when the entire personality and character of Finn really comes out, and is typically reserved for public suiting or going out onto the floor at cons. Now, this voice has a lot more fluctuations, from going from really high-pitched to really low-pitched, quiet to pretty loud, and talking really fast and staccato to really slow. It's a lot more dynamic way of talking. And this voice is special because it's part of the entire character of Finn that I'm trying to portray, so it's coupled with a lot more movement from my paws, tail, and body in general as well. And if there's any defining characteristics of this voice, it's to look and act and sound, well, cute. So this voice tends to be a lot more cutesy, a lot more happy-go-lucky, and just extends the joy that comes with being a fun purple panther. Though it's funny, when comparing my presenter voice to my performance voice, and I'm sure you picked up on this a little as well, I will say that it is hard for me to really emphasize the differences between the two. Because for me personally, it's hard for me to mix them. The problem is I'm still in the context of giving a presentation while making a video. So trying to take myself out of that context and into the more general fursuiting context is pretty hard. I'm not too good at multitasking. But I do have one last voice that I use that is a lot different from the first two. In fact, there's a good argument to be made that it's not really a voice at all. Part of the fun of acting as a big anthropomorphic cat is mixing in the sounds that cats make into the character. So my last voice, which I refer to as my animal voice or my kitty voice, is mostly composed of sounds. Now, if you're new to the fandom or the concept of fursuiting or performing as a persona, this may sound pretty weird to you, and not in the fun, weird way. But as it turns out, this is actually a pretty common theme amongst members of the fandom, where we all throw different animal-based onomatopoeias into our speech. A common one that I know I do a lot is when I get complimented on my suit in person, I will follow up a thank you with a couple of meow meows, just to add a little cute kitty flavor to how I interact with others in suit. And there's no rhyme or reason to them, they're honestly quite random and range from lighthearted meows to full-on purrs. Let's see. Hopefully the mic picked that up. But the whole idea is to replace full-on words with sounds that portray emotions themselves, something we would all have to do if we couldn't speak to each other. So there you have it. That is the array of ways that I tend to speak while in fursuit. I like to mix and match them all depending on the situation, all to give this character a little bit more dimension. And of course, you don't have to do this. Silent suiting has its own benefits, and keeping the same voice as you normally use to talk is just as well. I believe that there is no right or wrong way to fursuit. It's your character. You can do what you please with it. But if you're looking to add a little extra personality to yours, even if you don't have a fursuit, consider giving your persona its own voice. It's a fun way to challenge the way you normally speak and really adds to the fantasy aspect of being an anthropomorphic animal as well. And above all else, it's just another dumb, fun thing that you get to do as a furry. Alright, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one, but until then, stay wild out there. Peace.